Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about the film 50 Shades of Grey. It is the kind of movie that meets your expectations in that no one in their right mind thought this movie was going to be good. That's kind of the thing with 50 Shades of Grey, is no one was expecting much, and it doesn't give you much. It's exactly what you thought it was going to be, and not really very much more. Anastasia Steele has a chance meeting with Christian Grey because her friend's sick, who's a journalism major, so of course Anastasia Steele can just kind of do the interview anyway. Christian Grey instantly falls in love with Anastasia Steele and shows up at her work. Then they start a relationship, and then he shows her that he is into all sorts of S&M type scenarios and asks her to sign a contract wherein he is the dominant and she is the submissive, and that they will engage in his playroom and all the kind of S&M kind of things that he is into, and she has to decide if she wants to do that or not, as she keeps falling in love with him as they keep having sex and as their relationship develops. The thing with movies based on books that are a big deal, the book and the movie itself are like an event, but they're not good stories. It's usually something that someone in a really sheltered scenario would find shocking. I kind of think this is less comparable to Twilight, although I know this is based on Twilight fan fiction or whatever. It's more based on kind of like the Da Vinci Code. When I was like 13, I thought, oh hey, you know, Jesus probably had sex with Mary Magdalene because she's like a prostitute and potentially a really good one, so why would he have not hit that a couple times? And then, you know, that's the whole Da Vinci Code, spoilers. And then The Firm is another example of that, wherein, you know, I forget the plot of The Firm, but Tom Cruise is a lawyer, I think the mob's involved, doesn't really matter. But the point is, 50 Shades of Grey follows that also. In that, the S&M, the BDSM thing, it's just not really something I find shocking. Maybe I go on Tumblr too much. Maybe that's it. To me, it's not like earth-shattering. I don't hear this story and it like blows my mind. And I think it's like kind of that whole idea of a story that's for the incredibly sheltered, but it's something that doesn't really live on because as culture progresses, our views on things progress. So like something like 50 Shades of Grey has an expiration date on it to an extreme degree, because in 20 years, something like 50 Shades of Grey is going to seem really quaint. It feels like kind of a quaint, high-budgeted, with a lot more sex in it Lifetime movie. And it's shot that way. And Sam Taylor Johnson, who's done one movie before this, and I don't exactly understand why they let her do this movie, and nothing that I saw from this really impressed me. She's kind of a no-name director. It feels like it's directed like a Lifetime movie. A film that you would watch with your friends and talk over. My wife and I often see a bad movie on Valentine's Day. It's like our tradition, so we went and saw this movie because we expected it to be bad, and we were correct in that assumption. The thing that made this movie wasn't the movie, it was the people in the audience laughing when they get into the playroom, making dumb comments, laughing at all sorts of various things going on throughout the movie. And dumb comments and laughs and hoots and all that stuff made this a really fun experience. Or, well, as fun as it could be, because this movie is way too long. The event of it is a lot of fun. What it has on its side is that people are going to the theater pre-gaming, ready to laugh, they're already giggling, they're ready to have fun with it. So if you're gonna see this movie, see it this weekend or this month, or when people will still be doing that at the theater, or if you can get a bunch of friends together and do that. But if you're seeing this alone, I just don't really see the point. Now that I'm saying that, I guess I kind of get what you would be doing watching this alone. But really, there's much better things on the internet that you could probably do that too for a lot cheaper and would get a lot closer to the point. I mean, this film doesn't actually have a lot of sex in it. It's kind of a major cock tease of a movie because it's like, oh, this sexy movie, it's gonna be really sexy with all the sex, and then you wait like forever to see it and it doesn't last for that long. Then one of the major sex scenes has terrible slow-mo, like really bad Peter Jackson slow-mo. In some ways, I feel like this film's trying to go with the camp, specifically in the beginning. The beginning of the film, it just gets right to the interview thing. They don't set up like who she is, who he is, or anything like that. You just go into this dumb interview thing. That seemed to play a little more into the camp of the whole thing, but after that, it felt like the film let that go and was like trying to be serious because, you know, there's a lot of fans of these dumb books or whatever. Which is another thing I hate about modern adaptations and 50 Shades of Grey. It's my understanding it's fairly faithful. I hate when the movies are incredibly faithful to the books and you can feel it, and the film feels way too long and dodgy and like doesn't really understand like movies and books are like separate things. Imagine that. Jamie Dornan gives a pretty horrible performance. He's pretty lifeless. He has no charisma with Dakota Johnson, who gave it as much as she really could. The film's so horribly written. I don't know how much, if it's really the material or their acting that ruins it, but Dakota Johnson actually gets some of that through. She probably does the best performance in the movie. It's unfortunately a star-making role for her. It's a good enough of a performance, at least for that. I don't think it's like a remarkable performance, but she at least like gives it as much as you can give it to kind of work. She feels very natural in a film full of people not feeling natural. I do think the dialogue, when he's like, I like to fuck hard, or his other dialogue where it's like, if you were mine, you couldn't sit down for a week. And my favorite part where he says he's 50 shades of fucked up, which is bizarre because is he referring to the movie itself? Did the movie become self-aware within the movie? That's not a saying, 50 Shades of Grey. That comes from the book. So like, does the book exist in the movie? But that was in the book. So in the book, does the movie exist? And were these people in that movie in the book, or different people in the movie in the book? I don't know what he's referring to. Anyway, the point is the dialogue for Christian Grey is really terrible. There's no way to act really around that, so I don't know how good of a performance you could give, but it felt Jamie Dornan, he just played it way too cold and serious. The direction just felt so flat. I was thinking though during it, I was like, man, I wish David Cronenberg had at least been offered this, because that would be a movie I would totally see. It didn't feel like there was a plot. It didn't really feel like they understood what story they were telling. The purpose of this is their relationship, but it seems to add in all these other characters. Was that because there's 2 other books and potentially 2 other movies? I didn't really understand why we got to meet their families. Like, they're not really going out for that long. They're kind of trying to frame things to act like they have a better plot than they really do. The ending specifically is so horribly done, but they try to act like it's a really good ending. It ended so abruptly. Everyone in the theater screamed, what? And then we waited for a long time. Why it took so long for the credits to came up was like also shocking, because you're half like, that's not it, right? There's like more. That's not the end. And no, that was the end. It was that bad. They couldn't properly understand how to do a story, or like how to get this to work for itself. This film should have been like 80 minutes, should have been incredibly short, and it should have been specifically more about their relationship. All this crap about like her mother played by Jennifer Ale and his mother played by Marcia Gay Harden. Why is his parents involved in this? Like, I don't understand. I thought this was like a sex movie with bondage and stuff, and I'm going home to meet the family. Like, what's going on right now? I don't want to meet all these characters. It's really about them, but it felt like it was about too much other crap, and it kind of kills it from being like a campy Lifetime movie or a campy or kitschy or anything like that. It just like ruins all of it by the poor filmmaking and poor storytelling, holds it back from even being a good bad movie, even ruins trying to be a good bad movie because it's just too focused on including all this crap that like nobody cares about. Do they really think anybody gives a shit about the minor characters in this? People will remember this because of the event and because it was about this kinky sex stuff. This is just one of those films that I wish it could have been a fun bad movie. A fun bad movie that you could laugh at. A guilty pleasure bad movie. I would be more guilty just because it's not like a good guilty pleasure thing. It's just a bad movie that's clumsily written and clumsily made and badly acted and doesn't really know exactly what it's doing for a lot of the time. Didn't really understand what it was doing, so it didn't really give us any of it successfully. It just like kind of got close to a lot of those things, and then you don't get any of it. This is a property that's hot now, and that's something that's been going on since silent film, where a book or a play or something is popular and Hollywood wants to make a movie about it because they know they can make some money off of it. It still happens now with comic book movies and video game movies and all that stuff. And it's the same kind of movie as The Firm or The Da Vinci Code. Those are based on boring books. Like, who would care about those movies? And I think in 10 years you'll find the same thing with 50 Shades of Grey, in that it was a big deal at the time. It was an event. And it was a fun event. I will say it was probably a lot more fun. Nobody hooted and hollered at the Da Vinci Code when I saw it. 50 Shades of Grey was a fun moment I had in the theater. It just doesn't feel real. It feels like a penthouse letter of a movie, but it just feels like the worst cliche of what erotic fiction possibly can be. So if you have seen 50 Shades of Grey and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.